Overnight rains have resulted in water accumulation in a number of areas across the country, but government says it is working to ensure that affected areas are quickly drained.
President Barra Jagdeo is among 4 South American leaders invited to a special summit of the Common Market of the South in Brazil this week.
And a 25-year-old cosmetologist is fatally stabbed in her home by bandits, sending West Rijnveld into a state of shock.
The details of these and other stories, and of course we will bring you the details of the Diamond Mineral Water Agency and Sport News and more in tonight's news. Good evening, I am Janelle Prasad.
And I'm Paul Moore.
With this edition of the 6 o'clock news for today, Monday, December 15, 2008. Paul.
Thanks, Janelle. After 2 weeks of negotiations in Poznan, the battle against climate change heads into 2009 in search of stronger political will, innovative thinking, and more funding. Talks in the Polish city ended on a lackluster note, with developing countries accusing the rich of doing little to combat the impacts of the crisis. Shah Dalal gives us an assessment of the conference and a look into the climate change agenda for 2009.
Negotiators will have to work to forge an ambitious treaty to curb greenhouse gas emissions and help poor countries mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change. Achieving this vision will require extraordinary effort, but fears exist that the issue has taken a backseat in the face of the world financial crisis. In his address to the UN ministerial meeting, President Barra Jagdeo expressed concern that the battle against this phenomenon is losing momentum. He believes that current actions to stabilize the global economy may divert attention from the bigger crisis that climate change presents. While the stage has been set for negotiations leading up to Copenhagen, there are many issues to be resolved. There has been some progress in discussions on financing mechanisms, technology, and adaptation measures. Attention was also given to disaster management, risk assessment, and insurance, but progress on greenhouse gas reduction targets and decisions on a global market to preserve forests and capture carbon are still to be agreed upon. Questions about setting emission targets for developed and developing nations and the goal of halving emissions by 2050 also remain. In light of a plunging world economy and diminishing optimism, UN Chief Ban Ki-moon believes that a Green New Deal is the only way out. Hopes are also pinned on U.S. President-elect Barack Obama to prove his credentials on tackling the U.S. economic crisis and climate change. But environmentalists believe all is not lost. Poznan has succeeded in enabling the Kyoto Protocol's Adaptation Fund to assist countries hardest hit by the climatic crisis. However, the issue of avoided deforestation remains a major challenge in the formation of a post-2012 climate framework, with countries failing to reach an agreement on a funding mechanism to pay forest nations to preserve their forests. A joint declaration on the importance of taking early action on deforestation was the only conclusion forthcoming, with the UK pledging $150 million to avoid deforestation. President Barra Jagdeo, who presented Guyana's case on avoided deforestation, has warned nations about the costly consequences of inaction. He has cautioned leaders against judging this phenomenon as merely an environmental issue, since it can disrupt socio-economic progress globally. At this stage, it is hoped that the upcoming negotiations slated for 2009 will see greater commitments from governments and a clear mechanism for rewarding countries such as Guyana for their standing forests. Reporting for the 6 o'clock news, I'm Shardalal.
Well, President Barra Jagdeo is among 4 South American leaders invited to a special summit of the Common Market of the South in Brazil this week. Mercosur will discuss social protection measures in the face of the world financial crisis and regional social action plan on December 17 in Costa do Sauípe, Brazil. The summit is expected to announce the launching of the Mercosur Social Institute, which will give technical support to the formulation and evaluation of social policies developed in the region. Initiatives on the economic and commercial fronts, including the creation of the Mercosur Fund of Guarantees for Small and Medium-Sized Companies and the Mercosur Fund of Familiar Agriculture, will be discussed. A preferential commercial agreement between the Mercosur and the Southern Africa Customs Union is also expected to be signed. The presidents of Guyana, Suriname, Cuba, Mexico, and Panama have been invited to the summit. Overnight rains have resulted in water accumulation in a number of areas across the country. The government is working assiduously to ensure that these areas are quickly drained. This is according to Acting President Samuel Hinds, who is also the head of the Cabinet Task Force on Rainfall and Floods. Mr. Hinds also dismissed rumors that there were breaches in the East Demerara Water Conservancy. Edward Lane reports.
Up to late yesterday, water was receding from a number of East Coast villages flooded since last Friday, but Acting President Samuel Hinds says the rains last evening and this morning have changed that situation. He noted too that it has even caused flooding in some other areas in Region 3.
Flooding continues in low areas of canals number 1 and 2, areas along the East Coast Demerara such as Good Hope, Annandale, Buxton, Strathspey, Enmore, Hope, Greenfield, Ansgrove, Two Friends, Unity, and Cane Grove. But all pumps and sluices are operable.
However, the acting president says a number of mechanisms have been put in place and all efforts are being made to bring relief to these areas. He noted that a number of mobile pumps have been deployed across the country, while several outfall channels on the East Coast, particularly the flood-hit areas, are being monitored. Mr. Hinds noted that the water levels in the Mahaica and Maikoni creeks are high and is being released in the Atlantic Ocean.
We are aware that some of the pumps, 2 pumps of the Gaisuko system are down for repair, one at Montrose and one at Ogle.
Meanwhile, the acting president noted that there were reports by some East Coast residents that they have seen some black water coming into their villages and believe that there were breaches to the Krong Dam and the Conservancy. The National Drainage and Irrigation Authority has since inspected the dams.
Concerns, but let me say, up to this time we have, our information is that there is none of this, but we do need to confirm it, check it. Let me say that it does happen that during the dry season, farmers and other people may make cuts in the dams.
The acting president says if the weather holds up for the next 24 hours, most of the flooded areas will be relieved.
I would say that in this rainy period, there's rain falling and our people are at work checking on any untoward developments that may occur.
In Region 2, there were no reports of flooding. However, there were reports of high water levels in the Pomeroon River, the Westbury and Somerset channels. In Region 6, there were no reports of flooding or heavy rainfall, while the same situation obtains for Region 10, but water level in the Karakara Creek is high. The water levels in the East Demerara, the MMA and Burusiri conservancies are at manageable levels. Edward Lane, the 6 o'clock news.